All right, today we're doing a deep dive, deconstructing the arguments from a piece of online commentary that's been making the rounds. It's all about the Somali community in Minnesota. Now, the source material has a really strong, pretty controversial point of view, so our job here is to just unpack how that argument is actually built, piece by piece.
So let's jump right in. The commentary kicks things off with this quote, taken from a viral video. It's immediately confrontational, right? And the speaker presents this as more than just a random comment. He says it's a foundational claim of superiority, and it basically sets the stage for everything else he's about to say. So, the first pillar of the argument is built around what the speaker calls a viral confrontation. He analyzes two different video clips, but he's making a specific point here. He argues these aren't just isolated incidents. No, he presents them as proof of a new, way more aggressive stance from some members of the Somali community.
Then he brings in a second clip, and in this one, he argues you can see a narrative taking shape, this idea of rescuing an America that they see as failing. Now, what's really fascinating is how the commentator frames it. He calls this a pirate mentality. You know, the idea of taking over someone else's ship only to turn around and claim you're there to save it.
And that brings us to the second major point, which is really the core of this entire commentary, the central accusation. We're talking about a major fraud scandal that he alleges is tied to Somali-run daycare centers in Minnesota. Honestly, this right here is the centerpiece of his whole argument.
So here's what you need to know. The speaker frames this whole controversy around allegations of a huge financial crime. He says an investigator, a guy named Nick Shirley, uncovered the systematic misuse of government funds, money that was supposed to feed kids, and that this money was instead being funneled into people's own pockets.
And to back up these really serious claims, the commentary points to the actual physical condition of these daycare centers. The speaker says that if you look at the investigators' footage, you'll notice these places are missing basic stuff, like playgrounds. He uses this to suggest they aren't even operating as real, legitimate childcare facilities.
So, you've got the accusations out there. Next, the commentary digs into how the community is supposedly responding. The speaker presents a story of victimization, but then he quickly pivots to an incident that he frames as being, well, extremely suspicious.
The speaker actually includes testimony from a community member talking about a break-in at one of the daycares, and as you can hear, this person frames it as a targeted attack, saying it was all kicked off by the fraud allegations that were flying around online.
And this is where you see two totally different narratives just smash into each other. On one side, you have the community reporting a targeted break-in where critical documents were stolen, but on the other side, the commentator's take is completely different. He basically asks, isn't that convenient? He suggests it's a perfect way to destroy a paper trail right before the FBI gets involved, and even compares it to what he calls corrupt politicians shredding evidence.
From there, the argument gets even bigger, moving straight into the political dimension. According to the source, this isn't just some local issue. It has huge political implications. The commentator argues it has direct lines to both local and national political figures, and he says it exposes a deep partisan divide.
The speaker starts connecting the dots, creating a political narrative that involves all these key players. He's alleging that the way people are reacting to these accusations isn't really about the crime itself, but it's all about political maneuvering. That involves Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, the Democratic Party, and the investigator himself.
And here's the absolute linchpin of his political argument. He calls it political deflection. The speaker's claim is that instead of actually dealing with the substance of these fraud allegations, the focus has been deliberately shifted to discrediting Nick Shirley. Shoot the messenger.
Then the commentary makes its most direct, and you could say most explosive link. It is speculative, but the speaker puts it out there. He suggests that money from this alleged fraud could have been laundered through super PACs to help fund the political career of a sitting congresswoman, Ilhan Omar.
So, at the end of it all, the speaker takes all these different threads, the viral videos, the huge fraud allegations, the whole political angle, and he weaves them together to offer a really dire prediction about where he thinks all this tension is headed.
He actually lays out a kind of timeline for this escalation. He says that what we're seeing right now, all this heated online rhetoric, is just the start. He predicts that it's going to boil over into real-world, widespread conflict all across the country.
And that brings us to the speaker's final conclusion. He warns that the conflict is about to shift and become horizontal. That means citizen against citizen, not citizens against the government. And he ends his whole commentary with a very direct warning, labeling the people at the center of this as, quote, dangerous.
So we've just broken down the claims, the interpretations, and the whole narrative structure of this one piece of commentary. It really leaves us with a critical question to think about, doesn't it? In today's world, how much power does commentary like this have to actually shape how we all perceive these really complex issues in our communities?